Welcome to the Becoming Baby Ready podcast, your podcast for queer family planning. My name is Sam, and throughout this podcast, you'll hear me have conversations with professionals who work alongside people who want to start and grow their families, as well as parents of intentionally created families. Everyone I speak to identifies as being part of the 2S LGBTQIA+ community. This is your opportunity to learn answers to questions you didn't even know you had. When we think about newborns and feeding from the human body, all kinds of emotions can come up, some good, some bad, and everything in between. Azura Goodman is an IBCLC and a registered nurse, but more than anything, she identifies as being someone who wants to help you have the best parenting, feeding journey possible, whether that's feeding your baby human milk from your body or not. Sit back and listen in on some of the tips and tricks that she has to offer new and hopeful parents about what the feeding pathway may look like. Welcome, everyone. I am super excited to be sitting here today talking with Azura, and I'm going to let Azura tell us all about who they are and what they do. So, Azura, welcome. Tell us what your professional role is.
Hi, my name is Azura Goodman. I'm a registered nurse and an internationally board-certified lactation consultant. I have been working in the field of lactation for 10 years. I really, really love it.
Yes.
And at the same time, I've split my practice 50% between helping families feed. And I say lactation consultant, but I use the term, that's the official term, and I use it really loosely. I want to be seen as a feeding consultant. I want to be open to families who choose not to offer human milk, who choose to maybe offer formula and human milk. I just want to seem neutral because that's really where my stance is, to meet people where they're at. So I split my feeding consultancy 50% with supporting parents with perinatal mood disorders, which would be any time in the prenatal period up to a year after the birth or adoption of an infant. And I work privately. I also work as an RN role, but I'm trying to migrate into doing just feeding consultancy and some mental health support privately. But I do really enjoy working for public services as well. And I do home visits, I do virtual visits, I do a lot of work with parents who maybe didn't have a great feeding experience the first time, parents who are LGBTQSI, and basically anyone out there, folks who are planning on conceiving, prenatal, afterwards, and I like to support parents kind of the whole journey. So with weaning, moving to solids and things like that.
Wow, there's so many things we could talk about, but I will try and keep it contained because I feel like we could talk for hours about this conversation. And because it's a passion work of yours as well, I'm sure you could also spend lots of time talking about this. Can you tell us, how does your work specifically help those in the 2S LGBTQIA+ community grow their respective families?
Well, I think I'm a queer parent myself, which is helpful. Having said that, and as everyone watching knows, your experience is only your experience. So I do take that with a grain of salt. But I do try to come into the field and approach each family with the understanding of trying to be as neutral as possible. I never assume that someone has a partner. I never assume that to get to being a parent was in any way an easy journey. I understand what it's like to be marginalized and to maybe by the time you have a baby, a lot of folks, let's say they conceived in a heteronormative environment, they got pregnant very easily. They're very stressed as a prenatal or a postpartum parent. If it's taking you years to try to conceive financially, to fight for what you want, to be met with stigma in a medical environment, you're at a different, sometimes mental state. You've kind of been put through the ringer. Not everyone, but some folks have. And so I think understanding that sensitivity, or maybe the intersection of being marginalized, the effect of, this reproductive journey on your mental health, and then wanting feeding to work out really well. Also, let's say you had some fertility struggles. I think me being an RN and being queer and things, it helps to understand maybe like the physiology of, let's say you had like a fertility issue, which to be personal, it took me years to conceive. Even though I started, in my 20s. It took me years to conceive because I have PCOS. And so understanding kind of the physiology and anatomy of that can really help to understand if someone may or may not, or what struggles they may encounter in their feeding goals. And then understanding, this specific community, you understand that these types of families might want more flexibility. There might be two feeding parents. There might just be one parent who might not be able to or might not want to feed exclusively with their body. Understanding that some parents may want to use adaptive devices like a tube at the breast, and that there's so many ways to go about it. But I think the mental health piece and how I think I function best in this role is understanding that sensitivity piece and really supporting. Yes, I want people to reach their goals of feeding. It's really important. I'm good at what I do. I've done this for 10 years. I've seen thousands of families, but I don't want anyone to get there and sacrifice their mental health. Like if we worked so hard to make these families, I really want people to enjoy their parenting experience. If they're not sleeping, if they're hard on themselves, if they're, doing so many things and, spending so much money on, maybe supplements and consultants, and they're not seeing things work, or it's just, I want people to really enjoy this. So I want to help people meet their goals while maintaining this dream that they had. Parenting is not at the start, especially very romantic, but I want people to enjoy some elements of it. And so when I see people kind of, losing like the joy of it or being really hard on themselves, I like to bring people back and really help them like remember what's important, because feeding and how you feed your baby is very important. It feels like the most important thing at the start. We have to keep these kids alive. They need the right amount of calories so that their organs can function. But at the end of the day, it's such a small part of what you're going to offer this human on this earth. And I just want to keep it all in perspective. I'm not a zealot in any way. I'm okay with however you want to feed your baby, so long as you're doing okay. And I think understanding this marginalized community and how, I just really want to protect the dream and the enjoyment of parenting. And so helping people meet their goals, but still sleep, and still be able to do some things for themselves, because feeding is a little bit of it all. So I want to just keep things in perspective with people and meet their goals in a really sensitive way.
I love that. Are there things that you might look for working in the capacity that you do, that your clients would argue makes you better suited to work with the 2S LGBTQIA plus community than perhaps heterosexual professionals who work in a similar capacity?
Yeah, I think just really assessing that like mental health piece and how things are functioning, the state that you're at when you get there, and also understanding different tools and devices. And maybe I might have more experience with inducing lactation, working with the medical team, what's possible with or without meds. And I think that's like an important kind of angle, and also understanding different elements and what's possible for a trans man and a trans woman, and things like that. Understand, like having a frame of reference for that, and what things can look for, like templates for people of presenting different options. And so I think that's probably it. And like what we spoke about before, just understanding like what foundation you're at when you finally get there, after being, someone could have been looking for a donor for years, or been in IVF for so long, and their finances might be, they might be under a lot of financial stress, things like that. And so understanding and being flexible in that way. I do try to be like, supportive and offer sliding scale for families in specific situations. Yeah.
Good to know. That's good to know. When we talk about this, and you started off, and sort of just before we get to the next question, I want to sort of expand a little bit upon what you were talking about with regard to finances. It can be, I think, probably for many people that you're working with, beneficial that you have the designation of being an IBCLC, an internationally board certified lactation consultant, because many people can, if they have access to them, submit the receipts that they get from you to their insurance company for at least a partial reimbursement. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's changing. So if anyone wants to reach out for me, I have a template to present to your workplace. Not every, it's not as common for insurance companies to offer, like to have a category like massage, osteo, lactation support. But if you have a health spending account, which is very common, then
Right.
yes. So this is, and because I'm an RN as well, a lot of insurance companies allow you to get private nursing support. So I can always,
Still under
because I
that.
do function as a nurse as well. So it is really helpful if someone has benefits. Having said that, not everyone has benefits.
No, and it's certainly a point of privilege, and I recognize that. But the reality of the circumstance is, especially as we live and work, and and I say live within the 2S LGBTQIA plus community, getting to the point of being parents is not something that has been without any costs associated. For the overwhelming majority of members of our community who have families, it has put them back financially, over many, not all, but many of our heterosexual peers. And so if there's a way to recoup just even a
Of
few
course.
dollars here and there, I would think that this is certainly one way that we can at least hopefully get something back. But you're right, it's a point of privilege, and not
Yeah.
everybody's got it.
But having said that, there are a lot of things that we think we need to buy
Right.
before. And I know that, having been so excited to finally be a parent, thinking like, I need this robot that rocks my baby, that like the thing,
Yes.
I don't want to say any brand names or anything.
Yep.
But looking back, there are things I wish I put on my registry, like an Uber Eats, like contribute to my Uber Eats thing, or contribute to this like small account for, postpartum support, whether that be body work for yourself or your infant,
Yep.
lactation consultancy, things like that. Like these are the things that I think are really important too. If you were to devote some money to things you need, like, there's beautiful muslin blankets you can buy, things you can really get caught up in, but we really want to feel supported, confident, and like knowledgeable
Right.
in your role. So as a new parent. So I think if you sometimes feel like, defaulting to an expert might help, I think finances going that way might really serve you in your ability to feel like you're settling into your role. But again, not everyone has that privilege. And there are public infant, especially in Canada, there are a lot of public infant feeding clinics. I've worked in some, and they're often like pretty good. You're not someone's not often coming to your home. It's not necessarily like this holistic experience all the time, but it can be really, really helpful, especially if you have specific issues like your baby's not gaining weight properly, different medical issues, things like that. But there's always things that you can access. But it takes a certain amount of kind of tenacity to get there, because these services often don't have a budget to widely market. So there are lots of options.
That's excellent. Are there any pearls of wisdom that you have learned over the years that your clients are especially lucky to learn from you?
That's a great question. Uh, I think I might have touched on it a bit, but it's truly that, I love what I do and I love this role, but it's such a small piece. So it will work out for a lot of people. So based on your own anatomy and physiology, a lot of folks who want to feed will be able to do some feeding. But that despite it being able to be, accessible to physiologically, for most or some, it doesn't necessarily mean that feeding an infant with your body is the best route for you. And it sounds really contradictory to kind of my profession and what I do. But I think that looking at what you want for your lifestyle and balancing that with the nutrition that you want to like offer your child, and it's all kind of a big picture thing. And the most important thing that I want a parent to be able to do is to respond to their infant. So it's not the type of calorie or whatever, is when your child cries and asks for someone to look at them, pick them up, acknowledge them, and make them feel safe. That's what this is the, other than a caloric like amount, this is the nourishment that they need. And if you get to the point where you are so flat and exhausted and uninterested to be able to consistently respond to your infant, then it's time to kind of change something up. And that doesn't mean abandoning feeding a baby with your body. It could mean getting support from another route, things like that. But I think it really is looking at it a full picture. What are you missing? Do you need to ask if you have a partner or a family member, do you have to ask them to take a short leave if that's financially accessible to you? Do you need to, you know, start building skills around being assertive enough to ask people who do want to help you for help? Is it that you do some pumping and you offer it, or have someone else offer it in a different way if you really want to offer kind of that, you know, human milk and things like that. And another thing is that feeding can look like a lot of things. So if someone was able to exclusively feed their infant with their body, great. Someone can also do that and offer pumped milk as well. Someone may have trauma around their body or some dysphoria around their body, so they do want to offer human milk. And so how can we figure out ways to make you feel safe utilizing this part of your body? And so, you know, using a tube, that there's so many ways that it can look like, and it can look like something for a couple months, and then that might not feel right, or maybe you're ready to go kind of fully into something else. And that there's so many routes and paths to get to different places. And I think just that, like, flexibility in parenting is so key with everything. I think just one thing that I'm so happy that I've got from parenting and for my clients is that it teaches you, especially if you're like regimented, and a lot of us have become parents later, so it's like we're really set in our ways, we're doing things. And I think you get to a point where you're like, okay, I kind of have to just sit back and respond to what the situation is asking of me, what this infant is asking of me. You think you're going to jump into a schedule and get things moving like a, you know, well-oiled machine. And it's not, sometimes it's just like, okay, like, what am I seeing? What do I need? And every day is a little bit different. So it's kind of like an exercise in letting go of the reins and having this wild infant be your boss, which is hard for a lot of us. You know, a lot of my clients are closer to their 40s. They're, you know, successful, like in their lives or their careers or their relationships, and they're used to things just, you know, A plus B equals C. And so I think just flexibility in all of this is the going in with hopes and dreams and romantic visions, but also being like, it's what is it going to feel like if it doesn't feel this way? And maybe even if you have access to a mental health supports and you've gone through this like fertility journey or trying to conceive in this way, you know, even working on yourself a little bit before coming to this and saying, you know, what will I do if this doesn't work out? Feeding wise, sleep wise, all those things.
Hold on for just a moment. We'll be right back. It's Sam from babyREADY. If you have been listening to this podcast, then you know that the focus is to help you find answers to questions you didn't even know you had. And now you get to do it in person. On Saturday, June 8th at the 519 in Toronto on Church Street, I am hosting an in-person event where you get to come and listen to different people speak about the work that they do to help members of the queer community start or grow their families through parenthood. For more information, visit my website, www.babyready.info. It's true, you raise a good point, and it's something that I bring up whenever I'm working with a couple, and I try to remind them that as much as the baby world has been prescribed to us as being an all or nothing thing, we either feed from our body or we bottle feed. We either co-sleep or we crib sleep. We either cloth diaper or we paper diaper. We never hear people, or we infrequently hear people talk about the balance of trying a little bit of everything till we find that path that works best for our family, because it doesn't have to be all or nothing. You don't have to jump in with 2 feet and then feel like we're drowning, because parenting's busy. Parenting's busy. It's amazing. It's wonderful. It fills every part of your heart, but it's also busy. And so it can be fatiguing. So we have to find the path that actually makes sense for your family. And who cares about other people's families, really, when you're making those decisions, right?
And you might need to try a lot of things on. You might be a parent who thinks that sleep training is a horrendous act, and then you actually really need to get access to a sleep consultant and get more sleep to preserve things. And so, yeah, it could be something for 2 months and you're like, never mind. Yeah, I want to, you know, I don't want to co-sleep, or I do want to co-sleep, or because I think just keeping an open mind and things, once you feel like you've got your baby in a groove, like they're going to change. It's going to be completely different. Like they're going to be in this phase for a couple of weeks. So it's beautiful and it's a cruel joke, like all at the same time. So I like that. Like it's the most gray experience. And I think it's great to read a bunch of books and things like that, but I mean, using your own, the knowledge from like an expert, yourself, but most importantly, your like instinct and your gut and what's working for you is so vital. So yeah, I totally agree with your position with that.
Yeah. So you are a parent. You have been there, done that, as the shirt may say. But were you ever made to feel throughout your own journey that you were the other?
Yeah, I have an interesting perspective. And I'm privileged in the sense that I'm like, I'm pretty like, people would just assume that I'm female presenting. People don't assume that I'm queer unless I'm with my partner, who is a lot more kind of like non-binary. And I think as a duo, we've made to feel other when I'm on my own, not so much. But then when my partner would come to the clinic with me, we'd have to kind of advocate for us as a couple, or me advocate for her as a person. So when in our fertility clinic, we had some weird experiences where, my partner Mandy was often my buddy, or does your husband want to come with you? And we've been really clear about our pronouns because she's okay with she or they. We've been clear, it's on our records. And it's funny because a lot of these clinics are very like, there's postering and things that say that they're really supportive of these communities, and the proof is not in the pudding a lot of the time. And it's wild because I'm in Toronto. This is an extremely like overall diverse and somewhat accepting compared to a lot of different cultures and communities. But often it was like, yeah, we were like, I'm like, that's not my buddy. And they're like, sorry, your husband. And I'm like, definitely also not my husband. Like, you have my chart, you have both of our charts in your hands. So it would just take that extra mile. And then I think like not, we started doing a lot of IUIs. So using washed frozen sperm and then inserting it directly into the uterus. And I think we started off with a physician who didn't understand that this was like a sacred thing for us, like anyone else conceiving a baby. And so we were like, can you please tell us when you're going to kind of like, through the catheter or whatever, push the sperm into my uterus? And he's like, I already did it. He didn't give us any warning. He was just setting up. And so we're like, oh, and then also just made like, some different comments that didn't feel right. And so we actually switched. We switched to another doctor within that practice. Okay. And we would have kept switching until we found someone, but we found someone who was a big part of what they did and what they love to do is helping queer families create their families. So,
good on you for advocating for yourselves.
Yeah. And that's hard. And I understand too that like, and in the medical environment in general, like, I have a certain capacity to advocate for myself because it's the type of person that I am. I'm not a shrinking valley, but also I'm an RN. And so if someone had like a language barrier, they were less assertive, it can be really hard. So I always encourage someone, like, if you or your partner don't feel confident, bring a third person in, bring someone in who you feel comfortable with, or consult with someone, write a script together, write some notes. And, we had to talk to the receptionist and ask them to talk to the ultrasound techs who are, amazing. These people work really hard, these ultrasound techs in these clinics, but just to say, you say you've had this training, like, we need to see it. It feels awkward when we come and you say these things to us, which isn't a fun conversation to have, especially when you're worried that it shouldn't, but it could affect your care in a private environment. It's kind of different. So I like when I'm on my own in a medical place, a lot of people like about feeling other. A lot of people ask me about my husband. A lot of people ask me where my daughter got her eyes from, different things like that, or these daddy's eyes or things like that, just because I don't maybe outwardly present as queer. And that can make my partner feel very awkward when they're right there, or things like that. So I think that it hurts me like for them, but I think I'm in a privileged stance where I don't get it a lot. But as a family, it's been tricky. Same with our pediatrician, and even like our OB said, like, like has asked us stuff about kind of genetic history, just kind of like not, I don't know, like asking my partner about their genetic history, but like my partner's not, things like that. Yeah. So it's just kind of helping others, like nudge them along, and all of us make mistakes, myself included. So I don't hold that against anyone, but there is a lot of like teaching, correcting, which can be a burden for people. But hopefully like us doing that helps the next person when we teach about language and things like that. So I haven't made to feel like too other, but it's always nervous moving to a new community. Even we moved about a year ago. You never know, like, are you going to be accepted as like this queer family on the block, things like that. We were really lucky, and we went to our child's daycare, and there was 3 other same-sex parents like in the class. We were like, this is wild, but you never know what you're going to get. Sometimes you fear for your safety in any environment. So
yes.
Yeah, so we do feel it a bit. I think that I'm at a like, just based on how I present, it's helpful. But I know my partner is, we've definitely encountered some awkward situations.
Recognizing that there's going to be obviously some bias, you've agreed to be a part of this show, so you must see some value in a show such as this. When you were on your journey to becoming parents, and and looking back, are there parts of this show that you're hoping other people will have access to? Are there stories or situations or dynamics or professionals that you hope are participating in the show because you really would have felt a benefit from having a chance to hear a story from them?
Yeah, I think just hearing about families who'd gone through it, what that process looks like. We actually wish that we had stopped doing IUIs earlier because we spent so much money on sperm. And IVF actually, based on where we live and like IVF, like the actual IVF procedure being covered, we actually would have saved money going that route. So hearing someone say, if you have these specific fertility challenges or whatever, different routes of going around it, us being able to kind of financially plan and understand what to expect, I think would have been helpful. And understanding, like, I went into this thinking that because all my friends who were queer got pregnant literally on the first try. So I think a more realistic outlook, I think that would have been helpful to say, like, it could happen fast, it could happen in a few years. And I knew that theoretically, but I didn't, because of what I'd been exposed to in my social circle, I didn't expect that would happen to me. I also would love to see someone explain employment insurance and what to expect and how that could look and how you can share a parenting leave, how to process things, how to plan for that. And because sometimes there's a big, delay for that. And also, I knew nothing. I am a great lactation and feeding consultant. I know nothing about infant sleep. I've gotten to know more based on helping families, but I really would have liked to understand some. I really went into this thinking, because my field of practice was so narrow, that babies will just sleep, like they will just fall asleep when they need to sleep. Like you'll be out and about in the full sunshine, they'll just like go to sleep. That's when they need their nap. I didn't know you needed to help infants along with this, and what I've been taught as an IBCLC is very anti sleep consultants and things like that, because it can disrupt the rhythm of your body understanding exactly how much milk to make. There's ways around that. If you work with someone like me, you can figure that out. But kind of, an understanding of sleep supports or what to expect or how to help that, because once you get your kid, like having their sleep needs met, they're often like a happier kid. And you're able to settle into your role easier if you're getting, I like to say, a minimum of like 6 hours, even if it's chunked in a 24-hour period. So it would have been nice to, I'd love to hear from someone doing some sensitive sleep support and things like that. And maybe even like, I'm so interested in different ways like that a naturopath can complement this whole journey with regards to diet, hormones, things like that. I went a really medical route because I was really desperate, and I think I didn't even like think of it. At the time, I was so panicked by it not working and that we were spending all this money on all this sperm. And so I think going back, like with my condition that I mentioned, like PCOS, it would have been really cool to, done a more diet or supplements based things like I did do some acupuncture, but I think there's so much to uncover, especially with infant feeding as well. Just certain supplements helping build mammary tissue and different things like that. Or even if someone really wanted to suppress their milk coming in
Yes.
at the start because it's triggering, different supplements in that way, I can help with things like that as well. But it's if you have like the coverage or the financial access to these types of professions, they can really complement things in and I love a holistic profession that will kind of look at things from all angles, from your sleep to your mental health history to what you're eating to supplements and medications that you're taking. So I think those would be some interesting ones for sure.
Excellent. Some I think I've got lined up, and some I think I need to work on. But it's important to me to speak to people and make sure that I'm having someone come to speak about the things that are important to them. So thank you for sharing that. How do people reach you? How do they find you? Where are you in this space? And do you do virtual consultations as well as in person? Because the in person's important, and I recognize that, but especially, I'm a strong proponent of people reaching out and making connections before babies even arrive. We ask we ask to make connections before we need the connection, because it's easier than when we're feeling desperate to reach out to the people we've already connected with, right? So to that end, people are going to want to know how to get in touch with you.
I agree. I think building rapport with someone and just trust is important. And I remember I was starting off my Instagram. Someone's like, you have to put videos of yourself so people can see what you're like, so they can it is a really kind of like sensitive profession, what I do with people. So a few ways to get me. I do virtual, and I'm great at it because I'm not a practitioner that will take your baby and latch them for you. I'm not touching your body. I'm not touching your baby unless you really need to, you really something's really not clicking, or based on maybe like a learning disability, we need to go through it in specific ways, or that will help you kind of that kinesthetic learning. Right. But because of that, I'm really good at virtual because I'm not touching you anyways. And I've just gotten a lot of practice with virtual over the past 3 years.
Of course.
So virtual, I help folks all over the world virtually. I service Toronto and Hamilton and all the cities in between and kind of outside in person. My website is www.azurainfantfeeding.com. And then you spell my name Azura. And then my Instagram is at Azura Infant Feeding. And there's lots of nuggets in there to get an understanding of what I'm like, how I practice, and I like really practical kind of holistic advice would be there. And so you can reach out to me through my Instagram. You can go to my website, you can self-book, or we can just connect and start to get an understanding of each other. But I do follow people through their journey where I work with them prenatally. And each prenatal class that I do offer is based on your needs and your adult learning style. And then I tailor it to you, just because we all learn so differently. Sure. At this point. And then, so if we've done a class together, which we don't have to at all, and there are packages that include this, and then if we work together, virtually or in person, I have an understanding of what your goals were. And we kind of have like, if this happens this way, do this. So you kind of have a bit of a roadmap, and we can work with that. I know, what you really want this all to look like in your history. So it helps me right when I get there. We've actually done a lot of the groundwork and the history taking, and so I can just get there and start helping you right away in your medical backgrounds. And I think being an RN really helps with the understanding of the physiological stuff that can hold people back, like with low milk supply, things like that. Yeah. So yeah, feel free to reach out to me at my on my Instagram or on my website, and I'm happy to just chat with anyone too, like informally. But it's always helpful to have a prenatal session. And my favorite client to work with, I mean, I love everyone, but is someone who had a pretty shitty experience the first time, and this is their second kid, and we want to plan prenatally for how to make this different and in a sensitive kind of trauma-informed way, look back on how things went, figuring out what might have gotten in the way, if there was either a knowledge deficit, it was just an anatomical thing with baby, your body, whatever it is, if it was like a hormonal thing, go through everything, make sure we understand exactly what happened in a sensitive way, and plan for the future. And we've had a lot of success getting people off to a completely different start. And so, yeah, I call that consult the second go. I love to do it prenatally, and then we kind of connect afterwards. And I offer a lot of like tech support, follow-up support, because these things, hour and a half session is great, but it's how it evolves over the weeks. And so that's part of my service too. So I'm happy to talk to anyone.
Yes, thank you. So I feel like my head is swimming. There's so many things I could continue to ask you, but I want to just let you have your afternoon back. So thank you very, very much for giving your time to us today to answer some questions and to share your knowledge. I really, truly appreciate it.
No, this has been a blast. I love to nerd out on this. We could talk about 100 things feeding wise,
Yes.
mental health wise. But I really appreciate and I find that these talks are really important and sacred, and just to be able to share a bit is great, and hear your perspectives as well has been amazing.
Thank you so much. Thank you for joining me today on the Becoming Baby Ready podcast. If you have a story that you'd like to share, or you know someone who might, if you're a professional who works in the capacity of helping people start and grow their families, and you identify as being a part of the 2S LGBTQIA+ community yourself, then please don't hesitate to reach out. We always have room for more stories to share, and there's always more learning to do.